Long Take Review, where 4 college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Subchakchai-Bankard, and I'm here with 3 wise men. First, he needs to go easy on the Pepsi. PT, how's it going, PT?
Not a finger! I'm doing well, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing great. And he's waking up Christmas morning, happy to still be alive. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
You think you have some kind of honor, some kind of code. You're just another man hunting for it. Wait, Jen, did you cancel the Kraven the Hunter episode? That's not what we're doing? You made me see Kraven the Hunter, and we're not doing that?
No one asked you to do that.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Greg giving us the gift of seeing things no one else wants to see. And last but not least, he's the true spirit of Christmas. It's Antonio Alfano. How are you doing, Antonio?
It's been ages since I sat in front of the TV. You see the whole culture: Nazis, deodorant salesmen, wrestlers, beauty contests, a talk show. But the worst are the fundamentalist preachers. Third grade con men telling the poor suckers that watch them that they speak with Jesus and to please send in money. Money, money, money. If Jesus came back and saw what's going on in his name, he'd never stop throwing up. I'm doing great, Jen.
Where did Antonio go? So, dear listeners, we are here to celebrate the season. Those were all references to holiday films. So we're going to spend this special episode sharing our holiday favorites or films that we recommend that you watch over the holidays. So, PT, if listeners want to spread some holiday cheer after listening to this episode, what can they do?
If listeners wear the chains they forged in life, they made it link by link and yard by yard. They girded it on of their own free will, and of their own free will they wear it. Then while the spirit walks the earth, they can subscribe to the Long Take Review wherever they get their podcast. We host the podcast on Jen Substack at thelongtake.substack.com, but you can also find us wherever you get your podcast, wherever you're listening right now. You can just subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon, Overcast. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. You can also follow us on social media at The Long Take Review on Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can also find us on Letterboxd. The account is at LTR Pod, or you can search for the hashtag LTR Pod and see what each of us individually has been watching. Jen?
Thanks, PT. So I think how we're going to do this, or what we had discussed beforehand, was we were going to share 2 holiday classics. So like holiday movies that we are our favorites. And then 1 recommendation for just any movie that we think you should be watching over the holiday season. So especially like, to get together with your family or just something that we recommend for this time of year. Is that correct? Blink twice if you would not agree to this. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's a terrible choice. Don't watch Blink twice with your family. That's dark. Don't do it.
Depends on what kind of family you have, I guess.
That's true. We don't want to paint everyone with a broad brush, I suppose. So who wants to start?
I'll go first. I was the one most pushing for this. So I will say, like, for one little subgenre of holiday movies, which is relevant to a recent movie that came and went that I think most of us liked, but doesn't matter anymore in the Oscar race, are the Saturday Night Live alum movies. I have a feeling, I don't know if I have a feeling, but it's a possibility that one or more of these movies could show up outside of my entry here. But I want to put forward the 1983 movie Trading Places, which is I tend to think of it more as a New Year's movie than a Christmas movie, but it really takes place over the entire holiday season. For those who don't know it, it stars Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, and it's sort of a twist on the Prince and the Pauper story. The idea is 2 very rich brothers decide as a contest between the 2 of them to see. They wanted to see if are people able to succeed in the world, but particularly in the world of sort of finance and business that they are in, due to their nurture or due to their nature. And to do this, they take one character played by Dan Aykroyd, who is a very well-bred, rich, snobby guy, and take everything away from him, and then pluck another person off the street who is not living his best life, played by Eddie Murphy, and put him in a position of success. I don't know if we need to have holiday movies be about class consciousness and pushing back and fighting against the oligarchy, but it helps. And this movie does a really good job of sort of taking some standard holiday cheer messages of found family and sort of seeing what like matters to us and who do we connect with and how we can connect with them, but running it through a a story about sort of financial and societal manipulation that I think holds up very well. There are elements that do not hold up very well. There is some casual homophobia that is perhaps not surprising from a movie from comedy stars in the early 80s. And there is also a scene where Dan Aykroyd is in blackface. It's not endorsed or anything like that. However, it's present if that's something that listeners would be like, I don't want to watch anything that has that. It's no Holiday Inn, the movie from which White Christmas came from. However, it's notable that it's there, but it really does hold up well. And in a post 2008, I mean, we're very post 2008 financial crash. The end sequence of the movie, where you have to just sort of follow along for the ride, does a as good a job as The Big Short in explaining why society almost collapsed close to 20 years ago, or I guess 16 years ago. And we're looking down the barrel of more time with rich people pulling a lot of strings to control how we think and what we're doing, and it's good to be thinking about that and be aware of it on this holiday season. So Trading Places is my first choice.
I have never seen this movie.
I've never seen it either.
Yeah.
But now I will.
Whoa.
I mean, Holiday Movie Club. I'd be up for watching it. I have a feeling I would be curious to know what everyone's reaction is. It's not like a childhood favorite, but it's definitely like I saw it in my late teens, early 20s, and was like, oh, this movie's great, and it's only grown in my esteem. But maybe there is a time capsule component to that.
Do people widely agree that it's a holiday movie, or is there controversy there? Is it like?
I mean, there's a lot of prominent Christmas stuff happening. There's a scene with Dan Aykroyd in a Santa suit and a baked salmon that is haunting and hilarious, but also haunting. That will make sense when you watch the movie. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if people immediately like jump to like, oh, that's a holiday movie, but I don't know if you can watch it and not think like, oh, like main plot points are about Christmas bonuses and like trying to get together over the holidays, and like what happens on New Year's Day is a crucial piece of the end game of what's going on. So, fight me if there's anybody out there that has a problem with it.
I was just going to say, we didn't establish parameters for what counts as a holiday movie. We just kind of left it open. And I figured that if we had debates, that they would naturally come up. So, in case there's a listener who's like, that's not what a holiday movie is. Like, we did, we're being more inclusive than not, probably.
Since PT took us to the 1980s, I'm going to go with my first pick, which is also from the 1980s. When I'm home for the holidays, I think it just makes sense to watch art that deals with family, and few films observe family dynamics as hilariously and piercingly as Hannah and Her Sisters, directed by blah blah blah, released in Woody Allen, released by Woody Allen. Sorry. Yeah, released in 1986. I know.
I was like, I thought we fixed your sound issues, Antonio. I thought we fixed this. What happened?
No, what we didn't fix is society.
Yeah.
So, this has happened.
I understand. So yes, scandal noted. This is still a really great movie, and it still holds up. It's the story of three sisters dealing with their tangled relationships in New York City. The sisters are played by Mia Farrow, Barbara Hershey, and Diane Wiest, who won the first of two Academy Awards that she won for two Woody Allen movies. Hannah is married to a rock star manager, Elliot, played by Michael Caine, who carries a torch for Hannah's sister Lee, who lives with a pompous Soho artist named Frederick, played by Max von Sydow, and that's the thing I did earlier was his character. Meanwhile, Hannah's other sister, Holly, Diane Wiest, is a struggling actress. She starts dating Mickey, who used to be married to Hannah. So you can already see the sort of like the tangled web of all of this. So there are a lot of since it's a big family, the scenes center around like big family gatherings, and the sort of like the love interests and how they shift over time. I discovered this film, I think, in my early 20s, and it was unlike any movie I'd ever before. It was my first Woody Allen movie, but it taught me a sort of new possibility of what cinema. It was really funny. The characters were flawed, but really well formed, and dealt with like anxieties that I didn't know I had yet. And it influenced my own writing. I recently recommended it to one of my favorite students, and he loved it, which says something about how it can still feel relevant even to a 20-year-old today.
Nice. I also have not seen this. Apparently,
I
this
haven't either.
episode is for me. Like, I'm gonna have to go watch all these movies now.
I also have not seen. I've seen clips from it, so I did sort of remember. I was like, Antonio's Dewey. That's from a Woody Allen movie, but there's like a block of those great, what by all accounts are great 80s Woody Allen movies that I didn't watch before it became like, do I want to watch Woody Allen movies? So I have missed this one, but have only heard wonderful things, and not just from Antonio, even though I have heard Antonio praise this movie multiple times. And since we're talking about how sometimes these movies are great and they're made by directors who are not great, my first movie, Trading Places, was the first movie John Landis made after he killed 3 people due to negligence while making a movie. So let's not point any fingers from here. Sometimes jerks make great movies. Terrible people can make great art. Merry Christmas.
Greg, are you going to continue the streak, or
Roman Polanski's Chinatown is really bad.
I was just checking my notes. I'm like, have any of these been made by problematic people? I mean, the ongoing bit on this show is that I don't keep up with cancel culture enough. So maybe I just don't. I'm just not aware, and I just don't know. So look, listeners, you need to know that recently your beloved host, Jen Sobchakchai, insulted me deeply by claiming I'm the hipster on this podcast, which I don't think was earned, I don't think is justified, and I think was cruel. But listen, you've got a lot of people out there who are going to talk to you about how you should watch Muppet Christmas Carol. And I am here to tell you that is not a deep enough cut if you're a Muppet hipster. So I'm going with a deeper suggestion.
TV special?
Excuse me. You haven't
Okay.
let me finish.
All right.
Excuse
All right.
me. Excuse me.
Continue.
I have the floor. And anything that appears on Letterboxd has to be counted as a movie. So I am going with, and I know Jen is going to be mad that she thought she knew and she didn't. I'm going with Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, the greatest of the Muppet specials that were created for, I don't know, also the 80s, I believe, probably, maybe even 70s on that one. So if people...
See, I didn't think of that because I don't necessarily consider that a Muppet movie. I know it's a Jim Henson production.
Excuse me.
Okay.
I still have the floor. I still have the floor. How dare you? How dare you? So this was obviously, it came out in 1977, like everybody knows. And it's a great special. It does have the kind of core Muppeteers doing their parts, but there are no actual Jim Henson's Muppets who appear anywhere in this. It's all original characters, and it's a really lovely little story about it's about class struggle, but not in the great big city like PT's, but in a small, rural community seemingly peopled by small aquatic mammals. And the Otter family struggles to make ends meet after Pa Otter has unfortunately passed away. And both Ma Otter and young Emmett Otter spend the special, which is a film, looking for a way to give each other a Christmas gift. And it is very small and it is very sweet, but it is on my very short list of absolutely must watch every year. I have a version, iTunes had a version a few years ago that I purchased, so you can get it there, and I'm sure it's available in less official means. But it's really great. It has really wonderful music, and is just kind of a sweet little a story for the Christmas season. And I always make sure I watch it. I do think it's having a bit of a renaissance. I've been getting served like action figures for it and things like that on social media. So there's clearly like a nice underground love for this classic. So Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas does feature Jim Henson and Frank Oz, and I believe it's kind of the brainchild of Dave Goelz, another early Muppeteer. Jen, your rebuttal?
So, okay.
Why do you hate goodness and fun, Jen? Why do you
First
hate
of all,
otters, Jen?
no. So, I also love this movie. I watch it every year. It is adorable. It will make you cry. Like, and the music is unmatched. So I'm not casting aspersions on your choice, other than to say that if you go to Wikipedia, it clearly says television special directed by Jim Henson. And actually, I thought, the one I thought you were gonna go with, because again, like when you say Muppets,
that could be my second pick. Don't keep talking.
All right, fine.
Oops, all Muppets.
Big picture, they said, don't burn titles, right? Don't burn titles.
Oh, that's true. Right.
Yeah.
You gotta save it all.
I assume we'll have like an honorable mention round if
We can have shout-outs.
if we don't actually bring this. We can come around to it. This is wonderful. This is a great TV movie, TV special, movie, whatever. However you want to describe it, I don't care. One of my finalists was a made for TV movie, so I'm not going to cast any aspersions about it. But I will just note there are some wonderful outtakes from this where it's just the Muppeteers playing around in between takes, and that's I kind of enjoy those almost as much as I enjoy the show itself. The show is great, but the outtakes are quite funny when they try to run, even though they're nailed to the floor because they're not supposed to move. And so like, we're trying to run away and they can't. It's lovely.
So, I mean, this brings up an interesting question, because I do feel like, I was being elitist about TV, which is an odd take for me, honestly, because I often am an advocate for TV, but or we shouldn't be film snobs and look down on TV, right? Though we are a film podcast and not a TV podcast, I suppose. But I think with holiday films in particular, I do feel like there's a weird history of these TV specials because of like people own them on whatever physical media they have, right? And they watch them every year as if they were movies, right? That they, once they were only TV specials once they aired. And so I think that's a really interesting phenomenon, because I think, again, Greg told me not to burn through titles, but as an example, like all of the, what's it called? Baskin Rankin.
Bass and Rankin.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All those animated shows were originally, I think, aired on TV, if I'm not mistaken. But now functionally you can purchase them as a movie. So, interesting question about.
I will also note with that, not that I will not name any titles because I'll respect the process. But a lot of the like very long-standing classic holiday favorites from the generations before ours, I will even say, exist because they aired every year. Like for whatever reason, they could be licensed or didn't need a license to be put up. And so they were put on TV every year. So they were maybe not super successful as theatrically released movies when they came out, but they got the status as classics because they were watched on TV all the time, like a holiday special. So yeah, I think for this discussion in particular, the line is super blurred.
Well, I really like Jen's point because that's exactly my childhood. So I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than me. So I believe when my sister was very little, like one year, my mom just recorded everything she could on one VHS, set it to SLP, and it was like a solid 8 hours, 6 hours. I forget how long you could get on a VHS tape. Of specials, and she would skip the commercials for some of them, but not all of them. And like I only recently found out that my sister actually has the video cassette still, and I was really angry. I was like, I want that video cassette. But it started with some of the kind of well-known classics, and then there are these ones that there was I don't think this will be anybody's pick. There was a "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" from the mid '70s that I kind of, saw a still from on the internet recently, and it awakened that like, oh, that was on that video cassette that we had. I know the Cabbage Patch Christmas special was like deep in. Like if you fell asleep in the first hour of the videotape and woke up like 4 hours in, you can find the Cabbage Patch Kids. But it is that is like a special holiday memory, and so I think you're right that it's a little bit more of a blurred line than did I just log the Penguin on Letterboxd and feel dirty about it? I did, because that's a television show. That is not a movie and doesn't belong on Letterboxd. But I will blur this line for holiday movies. Jen, without starting a bit, what's your pick?
Well, so now I don't know which direction to go in, because do I lean into this with one of my picks, or do I take us in a new direction? Maybe whatever. It's I'll lean in. Who cares? So I'm just gonna start a fight with Greg, basically, for no reason, because I love all these movies. But
yeah, it's the holidays. Let's do it.
Yeah, the superior holiday themed movie featuring Muppets, and that is A Muppet Christmas Carol. And maybe it's the literary bias that it's an adaptation of a famous Dickens story that's been adapted probably the most times out of any Christmas story, would be my guess. I haven't done any research to back that up, but there were so many people who have played Ebenezer Scrooge right over the years. But Michael Caine is insanely good. he's so grumpy, and I don't know, just this and the Gonzo was the first Deadpool, right? Like he's breaking the fourth wall constantly, talking about himself as Dickens, even though we know that that's he's not really Dickens. I don't know. There's so much to love about this movie. I have a really soft spot in my heart for it. I basically have the whole thing memorized, and so if you put it on, I will just I will just say all of the dialogue, and sing all of the songs to the entire movie, and which makes it not very fun for everyone else. Or at least that's been in my experience, is that once I start doing that, everyone's like, oh, like, this movie too well.
Well, hold on, Jen. This isn't some soft podcast where we just talk about the things we love. We need to know the hard-hitting questions. Are you a fan of The Love Is Gone? Does your cut of Muppet Christmas Carol have that song, or do you prefer the cut without that song?
I say keep it in. We should know by now I'm not shy about loving musicals. So for me, like, the more songs, the better. It is super cringeworthy, but I don't care. And it adds a very crucial character development point. You understand part of his backstory because of that song. Is it very good? No. Do I want to watch it? Yes. So
well, and just in case we have people who are lost, people should know. So the theatrical cut of this film had a song in it that is sung by Ebenezer Scrooge's wife, or no, fiance, who fills in that part of his tragic backstory is their lost relationship because he kept putting work ahead of her. And then sometime when it was after the VHS release, but before the DVD, that song got cut out of the film, I believe for a rights issue, and was actually legitimately lost. They did not know where the original footage of that was. And it was only within the last 3 or 4 years that they found it, and they reconstituted the Disney Plus version to include that song again. So it's kind of an interesting little wrinkle on that film. I'll be honest, for me, it's a great time to take a little nap. It kind of slows the whole movie down, and you're like, I'd really like to get to Christmas Present because that's the banger, and we're not there yet. But then when they stop singing and you do get there, it feels even better.
I thought that was your review of the whole movie. I was like, wow, Greg's coming in hot. But you just meant that one song.
Yeah, I think the copy, this is short, I think the copy I had that as a deleted scene. Like, you had to go to the extras to watch it.
I mean, great time. Michael Caine, a great Scrooge. Maybe not, to me, the best Scrooge, only because there's stiff competition, but a wonderful Scrooge.
Is it?
Well, I mean, we're going to be potentially getting into not my next one, but
you're going to pick Bill Murray. Oh, sorry.
Well,
okay.
I mean, first of all, let's not make any presumptions, but it's certainly going to be in my honorable mention discussion.
Okay.
I just have to not leave this conversation without humble bragging that the whole cast family, the four of us, that's right, I don't only go to the movies by myself. All four of us are seeing Muppet Family Christmas in the theater at the Coolidge Corner Theater next weekend, which is one of our great independent movie houses, technically in Brookline, Massachusetts, but in the Boston area. So we bought our tickets like early November and have been excited about it ever since. So I'm looking forward to it.
You see
Okay.
Muppet Family Christmas or Muppet Christmas Carol?
Muppet Christmas Carol. Did I say the wrong
Yeah.
one?
You said Muppet
Sorry.
Family.
Muppet Christmas Carol. No, Muppet Christmas Carol.
The part I have to fast forward through is actually the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. That is
That's
scary.
intense.
It's
Yeah,
really
they don't-
scary, and yeah, especially when if I have
Jen,
to.
do you
if
mean
I'm-
for your kids or just for you?
No, for me. I'm not even joking. Like, and that's like some leftover thing. Like when I saw this for the first time as a child, that terrified me, but I think was important for my growth and development in terms of like understanding death. Because apparently death is a Muppet, a giant Muppet that has big hands and some gauze. Like, but you know what I mean. Like, but it's more like my kids won't watch this unless I fast forward through that part. So I've passed on the tradition.
Is it because you start shaking and crying? And that's why they're like, Mom, you should fast forward. We don't want to see you like that.
And I'm like, I had
Mom,
to
we
suffer
still
through
respect
this.
you.
Can I ask a meta question? Does anyone else have a direct Christmas Carol adaptation on deck? Okay, I don't either. So I do love Bill Murray's Scrooge. I think this is the time now to talk about it. My personal, it's on my honorable mention. But my personal favorite Scrooge is George C. Scott, which is from like a mid 80s TV movie version of it, which is like
The
very
hipster. Come on.
hell yeah, let's go. Well, but that's also like prime childhood. Like that's being a few years older than all of you, where I saw it when I was like 6, right when it came out, right when it aired, and all of you would have been like in a crib. So I think that he like Michael Caine's close, but George C. Scott does the best at like really being a jerk and just like having this like barely contained rage about everything. So then when he becomes happy at the end, it's purely manic and everyone is like horrified and they're like, what the hell? Because like George C. Scott comes across as so insane. And I wanted to say that because the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come in that one, I think you only see its shadow or silhouette and it just speaks in like a high mechanical screech. It's like feedback and it just like points a shadow bony finger and then there's just like a like just machine parts rubbing together. And that's the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come telling you where to go. Also horrifying, also broke me a little bit as a child. And you know, it's fine. It's fine to be afraid of death, but I'm afraid of death because I think about that figure as death and that sound as what you hear when you die. Any other Christmas Carol adaptations people want to shout out?
Yeah, I was gonna say
before we move on.
On that note,
mine's Michael Caine. I'm not gonna pretend, so I don't have anything to contribute. I also like I tend towards the animated ones. So like my kids found some more recent Mickey Mouse compilation that included the old Disney version with Uncle Scrooge as Scrooge McDuck as Scrooge. How he got that role, I'll never know. But it's a good
Nepotism.
one. And that was another one that I don't think was on that VHS tape, but like when I saw my kids watching, I'm like, oh, I definitely saw this like a million years ago and hadn't thought about it. So it's great.
I think Albert Finney's good.
It's a classic.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but I'm looking it up now. Scrooge.
It's Scrooge.
Yeah.
I believe Scrooge exclamation point. No, that's Oliver has an exclamation point. Scrooge
Correct.
is just Scrooge.
Yeah, it's from 1970.
And Alice Sim
like...
is the classic from the 50s that everyone likes, who I think is fun.
Mr. Magoo. Just you couldn't see a thing. It was so funny.
Oh no. That really hasn't aged well, has it?
I did do a deep dive watching. I do annually watch Scrooge, the Bill Murray movie. Jen called me correctly on that.
Yeah, but I don't know why you were so offended by that. That's
no, I was offended that you were just listing off movies that like we could potentially be saying later. I was pretending. That's part of the game. But no, it's a great call, and I did do a deep dive about how no one who made the movie likes it. Like the director thought it wasn't funny enough. Bill Murray thought it wasn't serious enough. The people who wrote it thought that their script was genius and had been destroyed by the process of Richard Donner and Bill Murray working on it. But I think it's great. I think it holds up. And I think there's a reason it took like almost over 30 years or over 30 years for there to be another What If We Made like A Christmas Carol, but like it's not really A Christmas Carol. It's like people working around, which was the Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell movie that's on Apple that I don't think anyone cares about, but it's perfectly fine. It's not bad.
My kids like that one. Yeah.
Filmed partially across the street from my parents' house in Greg's town of Melrose. The house when it's
I'll have to
here's the house in the suburbs that's on Bellevue Avenue. Maybe giving away too much information about where my parents live on this thing, but yeah.
All the long take diehards will be at your parents' house.
Yeah,
it's gonna
just
be
GPSing all the
people who love
all the clues.
I'm gonna go harass them.
Okay, well, to move on to round two, I will start, and I'm gonna be very basic, but in a way that I think is important. And I'm also gonna note that this is sort of a movie that's based on A Christmas Carol, very like indirectly. I think that there's a problem that exists with being fans of movies and kind of being in like movie culture, or, film world, film discourse culture, but even the wider world around it, where there's like received wisdom and thoughts that get handed down that you just are sort of like, these movies are important and these movies are classics and you need to pay attention to them. And that can be liberating, or that can be somewhere it's like, oh, that's cool. But it also can be like, make you, I think a lot of us have the instinct of just like, don't tell me what to think and don't tell me what to do. So this isn't actually that good. And I think there's, movies from back in the time, like a Citizen Kane or a Casablanca, where you just hear it's so good and then you watch it and you're like, that's it. Like, who cares? And it's old and it's in black and white and I don't really like it. So I don't know.
Don't speak for the rest of us. What do you?
How dare you?
I'm just saying that's a thing that can happen. I have heard from enough people who have watched those movies once and were like, they're not that good. And
listeners couldn't see, at least Antonio. I didn't see if Greg did this, but we both furrowed our brows at the same time when PT said that. We were like, "What? What is he talking about?"
I would love it if you guys had different experiences, but I know people who have seen quite a few like quote unquote classic movies, and they're just like, I don't get it, or I don't like it. And I think part of it is because they're told it's like they're vegetables and they have to eat it. So my second choice is It's a Wonderful Life, which is another one of those movies that has just sort of been passed down as like, well, this is a Christmas classic. And of course you like this movie and everyone's supposed to like it. And it's on all the time. And they do, it used to be because of various like copyright issues, like it was just free to air. So it was on TV all the time in the 70s and 80s. And so it fostered this generation of people who associate it with the Christmas season. And now it's like a centerpiece broadcast. I think like the 23rd every year is when it's on one of the networks, and they like make it last for like 4 hours by adding a ton of commercials. And I just know a ton of people who have watched it and been like, this movie sucks, or it's boring, or I don't like it. And I'm here to tell you, listeners, they're wrong. This movie is incredible, and it's one of the best movies ever made, period, let alone best movies about the holiday. And one of the reasons is that it's not a movie about Christmas for like almost 2 hours. For 2 hours, it's this story of a guy just being consistently blocked in his attempts to change his life and beaten down by the world around him, and sort of trapped more and more in this smaller and smaller world that he cannot get out of. And that's all he wants to do is leave. And then the end of it is this story of a Christmas miracle where he wants to kill himself and someone talks him out of it. That doesn't sound like a super cheery and fun movie, but it works. It plays. It absolutely gets you like on your feet, stomping and cheering and crying by the end, or at least me. Again, I can't speak for everyone. And again, I don't mean to be the guy who's like, let's talk in the Christmas of 2024. Let's talk about class warfare. But it is this sort of story of the pre-New Deal town oligarch who tries to take over. And this person who's like, I just want to go and do something huge with my life does something big by just being the person who's good and helping someone else in his town. It's a story about empathy, and it's a story about caring, and a story about kindness, and a story about society and the community that is built by people, even in times or in situations where the sort of wider world around them is just trying to stomp them down. And more than ever, I just think it's worth watching, and it's worth, even if you are someone who is I don't watch movies that are in black and white, or I don't watch movies before a certain year. And I doubt there's many people listening to this podcast this far in who feel that way, but there are folks who have that mindset. And I think that this is something where if you go in and you don't think about it as there's some sort of thing he doesn't know if he's been born or something, that don't think that that's the movie you're going to get, because you only get that in the last act, but just actually sink into this story of this person and follow the history of this town through him. And I think it's a richly rewarding movie. So I really think it's one of the best movies ever made. Go Jimmy Stewart, go Frank Capra. Both just sad and broken after their experiences of World War II, being how do we try to build something that's worthwhile now that we have to go back to being just people that make movie pictures. And this is what they came up with. And it's wonderful. And it's technically based on a short story that started with the idea of what if the story of A Christmas Carol was Bob Cratchit's story instead of Scrooge's. So that's why it's sort of based on.
I don't think
Carol.
I knew that. Yeah, I mean, some things are a classic for a reason. You know what I mean? The only thing I'll add to what PT said, first of all, bravo, it's good. You may step down now, sir. You have given your testimony. But I think this is just an example of one of the most sublime casting choices in film history, right? Because I think the Frank Capra ethos of the everyman just trying to make his way in the world, and the world largely does not accept his attempts, right? And it's it's a anti-capitalist ethos. It's like a I don't know, fate and chance and luck and all that. There's a lot kind of wrapped up in it ideologically, I think. But because Jimmy Stewart is so good at playing just like an average guy, right? I think we have Tom Hanks because of Jimmy Stewart. You know what I mean? And so and I feel like in film history we don't necessarily credit Jimmy Stewart with enough in terms of his legacy and stuff like that. But yeah, so I think it's just he's just so perfect for this movie, and that's a large part of why it really works and is enduring.
He's one of the best ever at playing a good person who doesn't believe he's a good person. Mm-hmm. And that's crucial for this movie to work.
Sorry, I'll be perfectly honest and say I've never watched any of these movies. I've never seen It's a Wonderful Life. I've like the Muppet ones I haven't seen either. I did furrow my brow because Casablanca, I think, even though I do have a little bit of a prejudice against sort of older movies, I think that is a brilliant movie, and I love that movie. So I'm gonna take us to. I think that I also don't watch a lot of actual Christmas movies during the Christmas season. There's certain things that I watch around the holiday season. They're characteristics of films that I want, but they don't necessarily have to actually feature Christmas prominently. So yours was a loose literary adaptation. Mine is a definite literary adaptation, and it takes us much closer to today, which is Greta Gerwig's Little Women. I have a distinct memory of watching this movie. I was in Michigan at my in-laws, and I was fiercely unhappy. and I think partly to appease me, after the kids went to sleep, my wife Janine drove me in a snowstorm to the closest movie theater to her house to watch this, and it was just magical. It did what all great art does. It pulled me out of myself. It transported me to another place, another time, with characters that I thought I'd understood but came to appreciate anew. There was a scene in particular, one that I was waiting for with a certain amount of dread, that culminated in a walk down the stairs and a beach scene, and it wrecked me. And it reminded me of how precious life and love were, the difference between a small problem and a big one, and it was just the perfect piece of new and old art to bridge me from one year to the next. So I have it's like it's a rare occasion when a movie actually like you feel like change, like legitimately change, especially like I was just in such a sour mood, but then it was just perfect, and it was just like exactly what I needed at that moment. So that was like the sort of perfect present that like the film gods could give me in that year.
Preach. This is a flawless film, and I would actually argue that this is a Christmas movie because I think I've used as my outro bumper before. I've been trying to watch all of Saoirse Ronan's movies this year as a letterbox project, and I have saved Little Women because I'm like, I know I want to watch that right before Christmas. I pitched it to my wife on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and she's like, "No, not yet, buddy. Like, just wait, because we'll do it. I assume this weekend, or maybe even on Christmas Day itself. Just as Bob Odenkirk comes in, we'll just feel the Christmas spirit all around us. But I just want to agree with what you said that this was a book that had been adapted so many times. It like when it was first announced, it was like, can they really do anything new? And it was so fresh and so new and so innovative. There are people in my life, one of whom might listen to this podcast, was like, I don't know, it's a little confusing how you flash back and forth. I was like, nope, I'm not taking it. I'm not hearing it. This is beautiful. Like, it was brilliant to merge the two halves of the book, and it was, brilliant to rework the ending. And I think it's not a spoiler to say complete redemption for Amy. I think all the time about how when she writes about how writing about something confers importance to it. I try to use that. I try to butcher that line to my students a lot, that they say my story doesn't matter. And I was like, no, but if you write it, it does matter, and you can make people care about it. So flawless pick, flawless movie, way better than Barbie. She should have won all those awards for this one.
I was going to put this on my list, but I knew that Antonio would, so I wanted to step out of the way. So, but also, it's interesting to think back on the cast of this movie and where they are now, right?
Mhm.
I mean, half of them appear in the Dune series, or Dune Part 2, but specifically. But yeah, really just nest of young talent that would continue to go on to do other great things. So
this was on my long list as well. It's a great pick, great movie. In absentia, I will note that Jasmine would like it to be known the 90s version is better. I don't agree with that, but she is a Winona Ryder truther, so she believes firmly, and Christian Bale as well. She likes that version quite a bit, and was not as pleased with the changes as Greg was. But this was a great movie. It's a good choice, and definitely, totally a Christmas movie.
Huge shout out to Tracy Letts, who has a small role, but an impactful, memorable one. He was recently on the Big Picture podcast just talking about his DVD collection. Man is a god. I am like, if there is a church of Tracy Letts, I will go. And he's like, yeah, my wife's a little annoyed. I'm like, your wife is Carrie Coon. That's crazy. Like, it's so great. And he was everything I wanted him to be, just kind of talking about how many editions of certain Criterion releases he owns and so on. So he's a treasure too. And I'd completely forgotten he was in Saturday Night. I was like, I wonder where he's been lately. I haven't seen him. Oh, right. I saw him less than a month ago. So, all right. A bunch of mine have been taken. So I'm going to go. So one thing I suspected of this particular crew was that we would hit a lot of 80s nostalgia, knowing our age, and we'd pick some, It's a Wonderful Life is just one of my all-time favorite movies. I want to put in a plug for seeing it in a theater. Here in Boston, they showed at the Brattle every year. It was all this weekend. First time I ever went, I'm sitting in the theater, and then Mr. Potter appears, and there's just like hissing from the audience, and it was amazing. The parts of it that didn't age very well, where like, I don't know where your wife is. She's probably closing up the library, and everybody's like, oh no, the library. So these don't mean anything to Antonio, but these they're very funny moments that are like a woman's fate worse than death is becoming a librarian. So please watch it, Antonio. Look, we all said some things about the Muppets that mean a lot to our hearts, but that's an important one that's not featuring any puppets. Or one puppet? No puppets. Oh, that'd be a great one for that meme, right?
It's little
replace everybody.
animated dots are the closest we get to Muppets. But yes, that would be great. We'd have to figure out recasting the Muppet It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah. So one of the things on my list was to try to pick something recent. So Antonio just picked a recent one. So I wanted to also pick a recent one. And Spirited is one that my family likes way more than I do. If the rest of my household were there, they would probably endorse that, including my wife. But I'm a little lukewarm on it. So I want to pick I think Claus with a K, which was a recent animated feature on Netflix, which was definitely one I threw on because I just didn't want to be paying attention to my kids and played it. But it is the story of a mailman played by Jason Schwartzman, who just surprised me I didn't know he had a current movie out, but he's in one of the movies I saw recently, and it was really awesome. And he's great always, but his voice work is impeccable, as we know from the Spider-Verse movie. And he plays a postman who goes to a remote post office and starts building a relationship with a reclusive toy maker named Claus. So it was just everything I wanted a Christmas movie to be. There's like a subgenre of like figuring out how traditions came to be, something like Santa Claus is coming to town, where they kind of tell you why we do these things in a kind of faux history. And it works. And my kids really love that. They love that, and they love like the Santa Claus, the Tim Allen one, where they like answer the hard Santa questions for you. They like this kind of investigative work that they can do watching these films. So I thought this was beautifully animated and just a solid story. And my kids had forgotten it this year and then asked if we could watch it. So that put it on my list. So definitely a good one for the whole family.
Yeah, I love that one too. And that's one of the ones where usually if I fire up a movie, my kids are like, what is this? We don't want to watch this. And then, but Klaus is one of the ones that when I did that, they were like, oh, what's this? And I think part of that's just like the animation style is really beautiful. Like it's just, it really draws you in. And it's different than what kids, I think, are used to for animation in terms of like what they watch every day, right? It is 3D animated technically, but it's very much more stylized than other things. So
in my memory, and I watched a little of it the other day, I didn't watch the whole thing recently. It's kind of a little wild robot. Like they're on a spectrum kind of near each other on the tower.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
It's you, Jen.
Or it's me. I'm the only one left.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go with Home Alone. And that's partly because that I'm a kid of the 90s, so that was an important movie to me, but also because I recently rewatched it for the first time in a very long time with my kids, and it was probably one of our most positive movie watching experiences so far, like in their lives. And I think part of it was because the idea of Kevin being a kid but acting like an adult is something that we've kind of lost in kids media today a little bit, right? Like the idea of him, because I think partly in 2024 that would be horrifying. Like you can't leave your child alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not funny, right? Like, but so maybe less of our pop culture has that kind of idea. But and I put this in my Letterboxd review, but in particular, when he goes to the grocery store, they lose their minds. Like they're just like, how could he be doing this? And then they start thinking about like, what would I do if I went to the grocery store by myself? Like, you know what I mean? And so it really is sort of structurally a perfect movie because it's kind of like bookended with the family story, but then in the middle you have this like amazing just slapstick extravaganza. Right. And so, yeah, that's my pick. And it has a very, very, very young Kieran Culkin, who is our current front runner for best supporting actor. And so that was also hilarious, where I was just like, he's so little. But even then, giving the cheeky eyes, like where he's just like, like in a way that I'm like, oh, well, that's straight out of a real pain, in some ways. So yeah, that's my pick. It was just such a fun movie to watch, and they, in general, like my kids were like cackling the entire way. But then also at the end, they kind of felt the emotional beats too. So it really has that kind of nice mix of fun. Well, everything you want in a holiday movie. It's got the fun, it's got the heart, it's got people injuring themselves.
Gold teeth.
Yes.
The usual.
And
Big
a Catherine
shout-
O'Hara, young Catherine O'Hara. She's
Yeah,
great.
well, it's so funny how like youths on the internet are like, "Can you believe? I think that's the Schitt's Creek lady." It's like, yes, right? They did that with Beetlejuice this year too, but they keep having revelations about her. I was just gonna say, big shout out to the John Williams score, because I think
Yes.
that makes a huge difference. I think that's the only time he's actually composed Christmas music. He has a Christmas carol that he created within that score. It's really cool.
And I'll also shout out John Candy, who has incredible. It's a little long to be a cameo, but apparently done as a favor for his Planes, Trains,
Oh,
and
I didn't know
Automobiles
that.
director, and Uncle Buck director. I think maybe that was afterwards, but he showed up, was supposed to be there for 2 hours, but then like just improvised all night, and he and Catherine O'Hara just did like 10 hours worth of bits, and they cut it down to about 4 minutes in the movie, and all of it's impeccable. The two of them are wonderful together, and yeah, I think all the stuff with Macaulay Culkin and the Wet Bandits it was wonderful. That works out really well. This sort of live action Looney Tunes component is timeless in its slapstick, but those little vignettes of cutting back to Kevin's mom and the ordeal she's going through to try to get back is great, especially when she ends up showing up like only within minutes of like if she had just waited with her family and gone back when they had the opportunity, she wouldn't have had to deal with all that. So yeah, it's good. I had I will take the mantle from Greg of hipster member of this, because I had like a window of time where I was like, is this movie that good? I don't know. When I was like in my 20s, and then I watched it again, similar to what you were, not with children, but watched it by myself, and I was like, oh yeah, this movie's great. Like this movie's really good. This is a fun time. So I get it. All the pieces work really well.
And the use of the I'm not gonna remember what it is now. The like James Cagney movie or whatever it is.
A fake movie. That's a movie made for
Fake
the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's insane. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That makes
it's
it even
our
better.
Filthy Angels, which I know because a brewery near here put out a porter for Christmas, and I was like, "That's brilliant! Like,
Amazing.
well done."
Now,
like,
Antonio,
your
is this another one you haven't seen?
I've seen this one. I've seen Home Alone. That one. This is the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
It's hard to capture how big a cultural phenomenon it was. I'm pulling this from some podcaster. I don't remember who said this, but it was like it was what an internet meme is, but it just spread through the playgrounds, right? And like the next morning, everybody was doing the or keep the change, you filthy animal, or all those lines, and just like you would, in the present day, kind of rush to your internet accounts and do that. So it's kind of incredible. I always think of in Dogma, I believe Salma Hayek plays a muse who claims responsibility for 19 of the 20 top grossing films of all times. And she specifically says, I had nothing to do with Home Alone. Like somebody sold their soul to the devil to get that one to be that successful. So it is always a funny joke to me, but yes.
And for parents listening, I'll just say there were maybe a couple of curse words that largely whizzed by my kids. They didn't really clock them, and they're mild. They're not, But that's in case you're like, oh, can I show this? But other than that, maybe there were 2 moments where I was like, did they hear that? Because it's the 90s and we cared a lot less about that sort of thing then, I think. But otherwise, it was very, very kid friendly.
2 years ago when I had COVID with my son and we were in one bedroom in the house because the other members of the family did not have it, we did the whole Home Alone franchise. And let me tell you, please just stick to number 1. Do not go any further into the Home Alone franchise. They are all
number 2's
terrible.
okay. 2's okay.
Oh, says the MAGA on the podcast, I guess, right? Don't forget who's in that one.
Oh, well, yeah, but but it's like making fun of him, isn't it?
Not as much as you
Or
might
no,
hope.
I haven't rewatched that one since probably.
Um,
How many
like,
Home Alones? How many Home Alones are there?
they're like 6. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's way longer. I think it's
There were like 2 or 3 that came out for Disney Plus, like made for Disney Plus.
one
So
for
in the
Disney
last 5
Plus.
years, only one.
Yeah,
Okay, excuse me.
Rob Delaney and Ellie Kemper star with the kid from Jojo Rabbit, not the main kid, but the little friend from Jojo Rabbit is the
Oh.
kid in the new one. Terrible, absolutely terrible. So what I was reminded because my son was like, "Can we watch more of these?" I was like, "No, we cannot. You may." It's 2 with Macaulay Culkin, then a third that is completely separate and has Scarlett Johansson in it, and then a fourth where they have recast Kevin McAllister and recast Marv, which I believe would be Daniel Stern is Marv.
Yes.
And it's French Stewart, which is totally an off-brand Daniel Stern playing. So that's where things get rough. And then there's a 5th one, and then the Disney Plus one. So that's the franchise. Again, do not watch any of those films. Just don't go for it.
I don't think I realized that French Stewart cornered the market on being the like bargain basement replacement, because he also was in the second Inspector Gadget movie instead of Matthew Broderick as Inspector Gadget. So what an interesting and likely disappointing sequence of events for French Stewart.
The newest Disney Plus one. Now, how do we go this far? Buzz does appear. So it is a canonical Home Alone. So technically Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2, and then Home Sweet Home Alone would be the canon versions of that franchise.
Wait, but then what's the relation of the kid to the other characters? Or is it just a different kid but same?
It's a different kid, but it's in a nearby town.
Sorry, I should not have asked that. I don't know why.
There's a home security company in Home Sweet Home Alone called McAllister Security, because Kevin has grown up and creates home security systems. But there's a moment where the parent, because now it's the modern day, so you have to have reasons why the kid doesn't answer the phone. So they call the police and send the police to the house. But the police officer is Buzz, and Buzz says, "This is my brother. We actually left him home alone twice. He's doing this as a prank. Please stop forwarding these calls." So then the police don't get to the house, and the kid is left home alone. But it is nice that they got the actual actor who played Buzz to come be in it.
He was available?
Wow.
Wide open.
Wow. What did that guy ever do to you?
I don't know. He's a jerk in Home Alone.
Yeah. Had dirty magazines. PT draws a strict line.
I'm not down.
I was also very nervous when that scene came up, but it's so quick that I was just like, okay.
Flew over their heads. My kids' heads too.
Yeah.
Jen, cut this out. But if you ask, what has he done? The Devin Ratray, who is the actor who played Buzz, his Wikipedia links are early life, career, personal life, allegations of domestic violence and rape.
Oh, great.
So that's what he's done, folks. Maybe I'm against
things. This is another edition of
Bubbles Bursted.
Yes.
All right. I'll start reading People magazine. I get it. All right. I'll start. I'll get a subscription.
I'm worried he was in Better Call Saul. Oh, okay. These allegations came out recently, unfortunately, in the last few years. Anyway.
Maybe being a child actor is not very good for you. Turns out. I'll probably cut all of that out.
That's fair.
Okay. So now we're on to just a recommendation for any movie to watch over the holidays, right? Correct? Or like okay. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, yeah. I guess I'll go first, but I feel bad because I'm not really following the rules fully. My recommendation of like a recent movie to watch is one we've already talked about a few times, which would be Thelma, which is PG-13, but like, I don't know. Like, I think that's fine. I don't know if like little kids would be that into it, but I think that if you're going back with like, you know, even like high school and like, there's a lot of people who could relate to the grandson in that movie who's sort of the like slacker loser guy. And then obviously like you could go all the way up to people in their late 80s, mid 90s who watch that movie. And that movie is great. So that's my pitch for that. But again, please see earlier episodes where we talked about Thelma to hear more about it. So I will instead officially use this slot, not just because Antonio hasn't watched Christmas movies and doesn't like them and doesn't necessarily watch old movies, but if you have people in your family, and I'm including young kids, although I recognize this may not work with young kids, and I'm the person least qualified to discuss what would work or what wouldn't. I'm going to make a plug for another classic Christmas movie, and it's the original Miracle on 34th Street from 1947. And I think that's a good one if you were like, I've got kids, they won't watch black and white movies, they're not interested in that. If they like movies, but they won't watch old movies. I don't know if this movie's going to bring them over to watching anything that's longer than 30 minutes. But if they can hang with a regular movie for that amount of time, I think this is a pretty good window into the past, into the movie past, because one of the main characters is a kid who's really smart and really cynical about the world and is like, well, I don't believe in Santa Claus, and I've been told to not believe in anything that's fantastical. And there's some like not amazing like gender rules that are maybe like presumed here or are being bucked by the characters, and it's sort of like noted as like, well, it's a bad thing, like you should act like a girl or you should act like a woman instead of acting the way you have been. But so granted, again, that could be an issue here, but I think it has the right balance of letting you enjoy it and just fully believe, but also like a huge part of it is not believing in what's happening and being like, well, that's not the actual story is like, can be traced in a very accurate, real world, non-fantastical. You don't have to believe in any supernatural beings or mythical entities to follow this story of a guy who is claiming he's Santa Claus, but you also are allowed to believe it. And I think that it manages that so well and has such a good balance. And there are enough little like bits that work that I think can like bring people over, even if it's old. And it's sort of like, I don't know what Gimbals is. I don't know, like, there's things that still exist. The Macy's Thanksgiving Parade is the opening scene. It's all set in a big Macy's. People are at least aware of that. I think it holds up really well. And I think that works. And I think, if you're not ready for the It's a Wonderful Life jump to go into old black and white Christmas movies, and especially if you're trying to watch things with your family that maybe they could get on board with, Miracle on 34th Street. Miss me with the 90s version. I don't care about that. I need the 1947 multiple Academy Award winning Miracle on 34th Street from 1947.
Good pick.
That's my
Thelma
recent movie.
on Hulu. I'm just going to say.
Yes. Yeah, that's my recent movie, 1947's Miracle on 34th Street. But yes,
Wait,
Greg is correct.
So you picked Thelma, but then you just smuggled it. Okay.
Technically, I picked Miracle on 34th Street.
You did that so smoothly, I didn't even notice until just now. I'm like, wait, did he just pick 2 movies? What's going on?
I did. I've got 4 more if you want to keep going.
All right. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing PT did, kind of. I'm gonna make a plug for a movie that we've already covered. Then another recent movie that I think we've talked about but didn't do a full episode on. So the movie that we've already done an episode on that I heartily recommend watching. When I'm at home, in my childhood home, I have my love for coming of age stories gets reignited. I remember watching like Perks of Being a Wallflower, Edge of 17, The Spectacular Now, all on holiday breaks. So the movie that I'm recommending is Dee Dee. It's just so funny. It's grounded brilliantly in the time period and place. It features a breathtaking, like a real family, and hopefully future Academy Award nominee Joan Chen. We hope. But the movie that we didn't do a full episode on, but I think that I think we might have mentioned. I think Greg saw it as well. Is Wicked Little Letters. This you should not watch with children because it is very profane. But my fondest memories of watching with like my extended family are comedies because it's the only thing that we can all sort of agree on, and that we'll all like sit down, and who doesn't love like a good laugh? So I remember like watching like Big Daddy, Baby Mama with and anything starring someone from SNL, I guess. But I really love this movie, and I watched it because Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley are wonderful, because they always are. But I thought the screenplay was really terrific too. Again, so much profanity, not good for kids. But after the kids go to sleep, if the adults want to watch like a movie everyone happy. This was delightful.
Great pick. Anything with Jessie Buckley, especially, I like. Hollywood needs to do just a little better by her. She's had a good career. She's had great parts, but like I feel like she's still just a little less acknowledged than she should be. It is actually a really good year if you are a family that goes to the movies for the holidays. When Antonio, I don't think the recording will pause this, but when you said Wicked Little Letters, I got a gap after you said Wicked, and I thought you were doing like a bit, so that's why I started laughing, because it was like a movie we've maybe talked about, Wicked, and it's like oh wait, no, he's talking about Wicked Little Letters. But that's like a 4-quadrant. Everybody can go and have a good time. I'm sure most people have already seen it, but they would want to go again. That is just kind of perfect. I feel like a lot of other studios are chasing that for Christmas this year with Mufasa and Sonic 3. They're like, oh, the families will go see anything. And I think, Moana 2 is kind of in that bucket too. I guess that's just still kind of chugging along, making box office. So that is a good year, but I agree with Antonio. My favorite kind of adult memories are after you put the kids to bed and, my sister and her husband and my wife and I are grabbing a movie, or, extended cousins, in our teens. And so the movie we've covered that I would recommend for that, and it does have a penis in it, is Saturday Night. I think that is kind of a good crowd pleaser to get everybody like engaged. I think the kind of tempo of it and the brisk pace just will draw attention, and it'll feel light. And if you stop paying attention for a few minutes, it doesn't really matter that much. And the older crowd will be like, oh, that's fun, I remember that night. And they'll tell you, and then you can have a good conversation like we did on the show of like which cast you prefer and what your history with SNL is. So of recent things, I think that's a really good one to kind of draw the whole family to. There are a lot that I've liked this fall, a lot of movies, and a lot of them have just like a little more sex or violence than I would want. Like let's all gather around and watch The Substance. Let's just do it. Like let's just all be deeply, deeply uncomfortable. Or Anora, or even like We Live in Time. Like there's just a little more kind of sexiness than I would want to sit down with my parents to watch.
Challengers?
So, Challengers? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A classic for me in this spirit is either of the Knives Out movies, and I really wish we were getting the third this year. But those are like good crowd pleaser and bring everybody out. So last year I got made fun of because I suggested a lot of dad movies. So this year I'm thinking, Saturday Night Live pulls in the dad, but isn't really playing to the dad. And then if you're having a rough time and you've already seen all those movies, I think you should just take the whole family to Baby Girl. Just go for it. Just like lean in and be like, do you want a cookie? We all want cookies. Enjoy Baby Girl. Brought to you by the fine folks at A24. Wait, is Megalopolis out on PVOD? Maybe I changed my mind. Let's get the family for Megalopolis.
Don't sleep on that Christmas night Nosferatu. Gather the family. Go check it out. I have a feeling that'll be a great one for everyone to enjoy.
The ultimate dad movie this year, even though I think it's going to have wider appeal, is Complete Unknown, right? Yes. Like that's like if you really need something Christmas night and you've all seen it, everything. I feel like that's going to just, you can be like, Dad, you remember Ford versus Ferrari? And you'll turn to him and he'll be in the car already, like on his way.
Right. Just like listening to Blood on the Tracks. Just being like, yes, let's go.
All right. My pick.
Wait, Jen, who's the director of Complete Unknown? Do you remember?
Oh.
I think it's James Mangold. What was James Mangold's last movie? There it is. I'm nothing except committed to a bit. Jen, what's your last?
You're even asking for it on other podcasts.
I know, and they don't deliver. It's not fair. I want my soundboard all the way around.
Right. So my pick is a little movie called Doom Part 2.
Yes.
This is a small indie film.
Actually, pause waiting for a sound clip, like you had queued up your own. Like,
right? I should have that. Why don't we have
just the noise of a sandworm?
Why don't we have that? Yeah. No, clearly it would be the Hans Zimmer scream, right?
Yeah.
So, first of all, This movie is available to stream on Max. It's very easy to fire up. It is big blockbuster filmmaking at its finest, right? You can. There isn't really any content that's super inappropriate from what I could remember, right? It's pretty like I don't remember what the. Does anyone remember what the rating for Dune Part 2 is?
Probably
PG-13.
PG-13 for the fighting and the violence, but
There's a little tent love.
yeah, very little.
But that's
not.
yeah. That's something you could be watch. That's something you could put on safely with like the kids are on their gaming devices in the other room. You know what I mean? Like like you don't have to worry
There's
about
that one guy in the visions that he keeps having who's like starving or dying, who just has his mouth open really wide. He's terrifying, but
okay, sure.
You know,
so maybe older kids. Yeah, older kid crowd.
The kids need to be, you know, they need to be taught. They need to learn.
But I feel like this is the movie. Wow. I feel like we should splice together just all our kids need to be scared comments because I feel like there have been multiple ones throughout this episode. Kids need to just toughen up.
Gremlins is one of my honorable mentions for Christmas. And it was partially the like, make your kids watch Gremlins. Like, they need to be scared.
No, they don't. That scarred me for life, that movie.
It's a great movie.
Okay. So my point is that actually out of all the films that have come out this year, I feel like this is probably one of the best ones in terms of bringing most of your family together, right? Like, because it's got a lot of action, it's a sweeping epic story, and it's easily accessible, and it came out long ago enough that even if someone saw it when it first came out, they probably forgot about it. And so
your uncle, the Academy voter, forgot about it, but
well, so here's the thing: is that low key my agenda in making this pick is I am getting increasingly concerned that Dune Part 2 is going to get like largely left out of the Oscars, and I'm not happy about that. And I don't want people to forget about this movie because it's incredible and it's just like really well made. Who cares that it's a sequel or it's a part 2? Like, let's go. So, you know, like just watch it. If more people are watching it, maybe more Academy voters will remember that it came out this year and will vote for it. I can't go through the Denis Villeneuve director snub again. I just can't. Don't make me do that.
Yeah, it's great.
It's got movie stars, right? If you don't want to go out to see Timothée Chalamet, you can see Timothée Chalamet in the comfort of your own home.
How does it feel?
It's got stars for young people. It's got stars for old people. You got Charlotte Rampling. You have Christopher Walken.
Javier Bardem.
Yeah, Christopher Walken, who maybe was involved in the death of the little girl from Miracle on 34th Street. We don't know. Potentially an accessory after the fact.
Wait, what?
That's true. He was on the boat when Natalie Wood died. Natalie Wood's the little girl in Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah.
And Christopher Walken was on the boat with her and Robert Wagner. When something happened and she drowned. No one's ever been able to get to the bottom of it. Anyway, he's great in the movie and people love him. So, you know, accessory or no, he's great in the movie and people will be happy to be like, I'll watch a movie with Christopher Walken and, go watch Dune Part 2. I agree.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the joys of the holiday season when you're watching a movie is to just escape into a world, right? And what does that better than the Dune movies? Maybe even if you have all day, make it a double feature.
Yeah. And if you're not old or young, Rebecca Ferguson. Come on. You can't disrespect her so. She carries that movie. She's so good.
But she's given crazy energy in that movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's unhinged in that movie.
She's also in a way still on Apple TV all the time right now. And every time for Silo, I've never watched it, but every time I'm like, there she is. There's my queen. And I put a knife to my forehead.
I've heard great things about Silo. Sorry, Antonio. I'll cut you off.
I wasn't on the Dune Part 2 episode because I hadn't seen it yet, but I love Dune Part 2. That's still my favorite movie of the year. Like after last year where I was like full hold out on like Oppenheimer, it feels kind of nice alignment on this. So yeah, I just want to be on record on the podcast as saying how much I love Dune Part 2. Now I haven't seen a few things. I still haven't seen like Brutalist, Complete Unknown, a few things. But I don't know. I thought that maybe it would have gotten supplanted by now, but it's still my number one movie. I've Jen's fear as well. But I'm hopeful the Academy will do right by this brilliant film.
I heard a pundit today saying that it wasn't even going to get into cinematography. It just broke my heart. I was just like, no, why? And
but here's the thing: is we have the movie, and I would rather have this movie as good as it is and have it not get any or very little Academy Award recognition than have it have a problem or be weak and not be that as strong, and it's still whatever. So we love the awards. We always have one eye on them, but I have
they're comparing it to Avatar: The Way of Water. It's just not right.
Well, think of it this way. Think of it
Very
as the
upsetting.
Two Towers. If it gets, the Two Towers is one that I think that's frequently I think of as my favorite of the Lord of the Rings movies. And that one got very little. I think it only got 3 or 4 nominations. I think it only won effects. Maybe it won a sound one too. But it didn't. Sometimes they drop the ball on these things, and that's a bummer. But I think that it's we have the movie, and that's what's important.
I'm going to say what PT said, only I'm going to name drop in it. So when I had the opportunity to meet Ewan McGregor and I stared deep into his eyes, Jen and I have developed a tactic for meeting celebrities where you mention something that is not the thing they're known for, because then they'll talk to you. So I told Mark Hamill how much I love Star Wars, and he's like, yep, good. Jen told him how good he was on The Flash and got like 10 minutes with Mark Hamill doing voices and like looking at her face.
And to be clear, I'm talking. This was the CW series, The Flash.
Yes. Sorry,
just so we're not. Well, just so people aren't like, oh, like was Mark Hamill in the Zack Snyder movies? Like, no.
So when I met Ewan McGregor a couple years ago, and everybody was like, Obi-Wan Kenobi, blah 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 blah, I looked at him and I said, I'm still so angry that you didn't win an Academy Award for The Beginners. And he stopped signing, looked in my eyes, and said, it's not for them, it's for us, and we love it. And it just shuffled me on. And because it was Ewan McGregor and he talked right to my soul, then just for this is what I look at every time we're podcasting is Jen and I in a picture with Ewan McGregor. So yeah, just take it for that. It's for us. We love it. That's all that matters. Also, Beginners rules. Can I change my pick to Beginners? Yes. People should watch Beginners.
Beginners is a great movie.
Very good.
If we were going back to only having problematic directors, The Ghost Rider, which is a late period Roman Polanski movie, also starring Ewan McGregor, is really good. Like Roman Polanski, bad guy, but Ghost Rider, good movie, and Ewan McGregor's great in it.
He's great at even mediocre movies. Like no one probably saw Salmon Fishing in the Yemen or whatever. Does I remember this movie? He's very good at it.
I remember it, but I did not see it. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
He was fantastic in the Harlequin movie. Did people see that?
Yeah, Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey. Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Salmon Fishing in the Yemen, a 2011 rom-com
with Emily Blunt, right? That's why they're buddies.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I
don't remember anything about it other than that you
pre-push-up Emily Blunt. So before she really kind of popped back into megastardom, I think. That's push-up because she does a push-up in Tomorrow Never... Edge of Tomorrow.
Okay, yes.
Sorry. Just want to clarify that because it sounded like I was making
it didn't sound good.
It did that I immediately knew what you meant, but yeah.
I knew what you meant too, but I was like, that's not what it sounds like, Greg. That's not what it sounds like. Okay, great. This is a great series of recommendations. Does anyone want to give any quick shout-outs? Like
fantastic. Do that.
What? Oh, yeah. Live, die, repeat all day.
Yeah.
I have a couple of quick shout-outs. One, The Holdovers actually really stands up to a rewatch. It's a great rewatch.
Yeah.
So that might be actually in my rotation for like a holiday movie every year. You know, it gets cozier and less sad on every watch. Because you know what's coming, you know what I mean? And then one of my other regulars is White Christmas, which I know PT made fun of partly because of the racially problematic things in Holiday Inn. There is none of that. White Christmas is relatively guilt-free. There is a number that is refers to minstrel shows, but there is no blackface, so it's safe-ish. Like you really have to understand the context of the lyrics to actually be even aware that maybe it's a reference. But I don't know. For me, like this is when we were doing our Wicked review, I talked a lot about like old Hollywood, golden age of movie musicals, the like MGM height, right? And I think this is one of those movie musicals that like when I watched when I was a kid, just really made a huge impression on me. And it's got great singing, great dancing, much crooning.
Love Actually has become hugely problematic in modern sensibilities. But if you could trim down and just watch the Bill Nighy plot of Love Actually, which I'm sure somebody has done on YouTube, that like as soon as it gets towards Christmas, my wife or I will go, I feel it in my fingers, and we just have a great afternoon. I'm not going to endorse all of Love Actually, but that is one that was in our heavy rotation until you really start to think about it, and you're like, oh, there are a lot of problematic pieces of that. I know Keira Knightley was giving some sound bites on her current press tour about how creepy she felt it was because she was only 17 when she filmed that and so on. So it's a little iffy, but there are some good moments.
I will continue to carry a torch for old movies. And the two that I will add in as honorable mentions, one is Billy Wilder's The Apartment, which again, I do think of as more of a New Year's movie because that's where we end then, but it's all the holiday season and leading up through Christmas and into New Year's. And that's, I mean, just a great, I mean, it's a comedy, but it's a very sort of dour story of Jack Lemmon is a guy who has a really well-placed apartment that the people above him in the company he works for wants to use to meet with their mistresses. So he keeps being pressured to not be there so he can so these people can go and like cheat on their wives. And then he starts trying to negotiate his own life with his boss, who's played by Fred McMurray, somewhat against type. He was sort of like a TV dad and had been sort of like, he'd been in a couple of shady parts, but for the most part was like thought of as a nice guy. And he's this like creep who's really like pulling strings and being an adulterer. And then they both are going after Shirley MacLaine, who works in their building. And it's excellent. It's really good. Billy Wilder is incredible. And I believe that was a Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay winner from the year it came out, and justifiably so. It's great. And I'll also just note, because we rewatched this the other day, The Shop Around the Corner, which is a Lubitsch movie that is also Jimmy Stewart in a Christmas movie with a woman whose name I don't remember, who's not as famous as Donna Reed from It's a Wonderful Life. But it was a movie that got remade into You've Got Mail. Instead of being a big store and a little store, it's just two people in one store who hate each other, but they're falling in love via pen pals. But it's also this interesting, like, it's the 30s and it's in Budapest, and like there's no like direct sort of like political component to it, but it is this interesting time capsule of this other world where these things are happening, and like what's happened with all the other characters in the store. And it's quite good. So yeah, I like that. I will say those two.
All right, I think we did it. Those were great recommendations, and a bunch of them I haven't seen, so I'm definitely gonna check those out over break. So I think I'm really glad we did this. And listeners, if you have holiday favorites that we haven't mentioned, please tell us. We'd love to hear from you. I know we don't really put out the open call that often, mostly because we don't think to do it, not because we don't want it. But this is, I think, a great one where, if you are a regular listener of ours or just listening for the first time, feel free to share your picks with us, especially if you thought we got it wrong. I'm shocked no one picked Die Hard. Like, I love Die Hard, but I don't necessarily watch it as a Christmas movie, which is why I didn't go with it. But I thought PT surely would mention it.
It was on my list, but it's like there were these other movies that I thought people would rather hear about.
I don't like Die Hard, so that's why I didn't pick it.
You're a fool.
Well, yeah. Greg. I know Greg's anti-80s action movies, so I guess that makes sense. But
it's not. But Die Hard approaches.
That's right. I'd had enough with his like weird Muppet takes. I didn't.
It isn't actually at this level, but Die
it.
Hard is close to Raiders of the Lost Ark in terms of quality. I'm going to let Greg sit on that.
I did enjoy a meme I saw earlier today, which is that you should watch Love Actually and then Die Hard so you can see Alan Rickman get what's coming to him for hurting Emma Thompson, which is pretty genius. So,
or maybe watch Love Actually and then follow it up with Heretic, because for the Hugh Grant arc.
This is making me think that next year, instead of just recommendations, we should do an above the line slate of holiday movies. Because Alan Rickman is Best Supporting Actor for a Christmas movie for Die Hard would be wonderful. And Bill Nighy for Love Actually.
That's true.
I don't know.
I like
Just an idea.
All right.
Just an idea.
All right. Antonio, where can folks find you? I know there's only one place.
Find me on Letterboxd at Aelefano, Aelefano. Greg, where can people find you?
People can find me all over the internet, especially right now. I'm on the Rebel Base Card feed recapping and reviewing Skeleton Crew, the 4th episode of which just dropped and is directed by none other than the Daniels. So that is their follow-up to Everything Everywhere All at Once, is an episode of Star Wars. That's crazy. We should talk about it.
They apparently they got hired. Sorry, I really shouldn't be interrupting you. They got hired for that before they won their Oscar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And it's Star Wars, so they say yes. But I couldn't watch it when it was new on air an hour and 20 minutes ago because Jen said, "You're recording tonight. You're not going to watch your Star Wars." And then she hit me transcontinentally. So that's where I am. I'm also on Letterboxd at Eoncanon, EYEONCANON, where Willem Dafoe is currently threatening to unseat Jeffrey Wright as my most watched actor of the year. Especially if I want to go see Nosferatu, I have to dig into some Jeffrey Wright back catalog. So see me watching The Laundromat and Ali and other Shaft from the 2000, whenever that was. PT, where can people find you?
I mean, you've got the Daniel Craig Bond movies. You've got Basquiat. There's lots of things. There's lots of great Jeffrey Wright movies that maybe you haven't watched yet. People can find me on Letterboxd at PT McNiff, PTMCNIFF. You can also find the show there at LTR Pod. If you want to share the misses, what we didn't get in our holiday show, on our social media feeds, you can do that on Instagram, Letterboxd, Instagram Threads or Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. You can email us, thelongtakereview@gmail.com, or you can comment wherever you get your podcast, wherever you're listening right now. You can leave a comment, leave a review. Why not subscribe? Why not come back and listen to some more insights from us? Jen, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jen. And to jump on the Skeleton Crew train, I am doing weekly reviews of that show, though usually like at the end of the week as opposed to the beginning after the new episode airs, which I will try to fix after the break. But I bring it up here because my first review talked a lot about Amblin movies and Goonies, right? So there's a film connection there. And then the one I just wrote today in anticipation of the episode that we're keeping Greg from watching, I talk extensively about Muppet Treasure Island. So so that's relevant to the conversation we just had. And happy holidays, everyone. Stay safe out there.
Holidays.
Merry Christmas, you old building alone.
I was going to say, light the lamp, not the rat. Light the lamp, not the rat.
Ho, ho, ho. Now I have a podcast.
Thanks for listening. You can follow The Long Take Review on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. Subscribe for free to receive new podcast episodes as well as written reviews of films with Oscar buzz and new films and series from pop franchises like Star Wars and Marvel.